What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fins Up Network. It's Ben Morgan. And as you see, if you saw the last video, I did change shirts. So if you're worried about my hygiene, don't worry. I've got it taken care of. I am clean today. But in today's Miami Dolphins off-season positional preview, focusing on the interior defensive linemen. I talked about that last video. Did the quarterbacks. I believe this is the fourth position I've covered on these off-season previews. But guess what? If you get subscribed, you're not going to have to worry about going back and checking anything out because you'll already be caught up. You'll be up to date. So if you haven't yet, make sure you are getting subscribed. And today's homework assignment, can't have the lazy listener. Today's is really simple, though. We're talking interior defensive line. Let me know, are you happy with this team's current interior defensive lineman? Or if there's a specific player, you got a free agent in mind, you got an NFL draft prospect in mind, drop them in the comments. Curious to see who you've got your eyes on, because I'll tell you what, as we go through this video, it's probably going to be one of the quicker ones because I really like our current unit. So I'd be curious to see who you have your eyes on as well. But let's jump right in and talk about those guys that we had at this position in 2022, because kind of opposite about what we've talked about recently when we've been talking about cornerbacks and backup quarterback. Interior defensive line feels like one of our more complete units. And the first name jumps right off the screen, Christian Wilkins. We talked about him after every single game, it felt like, last week. And the dude's been getting better year in and year out since he's joined the Dolphins. You'll see there nearly 100 tackles, 3.5 sacks from the interior. And oh yeah, what he was doing all offseason and preseason and training camp, blowing up plays behind the line of scrimmage, it translated over to Sundays with 16 tackles for a loss. I believe that was the most of any interior defensive lineman in the NFL last season. 6 passes defended. He was kind of getting his shades of Emmanuel Ogbah on there with getting up. If he wasn't getting to the quarterback, getting his hands up in those passing lanes and knocking the ball down at the line of scrimmage. But his running mate, and it's not even the second name on the list there, it's the third name. It's Zach Sieler. 70 tackles, 3.5 sacks. And honestly, we'd be talking about Sieler even more. We do it a lot as Dolphins, finally getting a little bit of love there when we made the playoffs. We'd be talking about him even more if Christian Wilkins wouldn't have had that monster season. But even in his, I don't want to call it limited snaps because he got quite a few snaps, obviously, in 2022. Still had 10 tackles for a loss, which we'd be talking more about if Wilkins wouldn't have put up 16 of them. But 4 passes defended. Obviously, he's the one that had the scoop and score in the playoff game against the Bills. But then kind of rounding out that trio was Raekwon Davis, and his numbers aren't anywhere close to where guys like Wilkins and Sieler were. But he's still a pretty damn good player. You almost got to wonder at some point, is he going to be the odd man out? If Miami's going to end up re-signing Christian Wilkins, which we're all praying right now that deal gets done at any point in time here. It could have happened yesterday and we'd all be pumped. You almost got to wonder if they're going to roll with Wilkins and Sieler and another guy at some point. We'll kind of cross that bridge when we get there. But Raekwon's nothing to shake a stick at, for lack of a better term, showing some age there. John Jenkins is the one free agent on this list, so he's obviously eligible to potentially come back. I think he's 33 though. Ben Stille no longer on the roster. And then rounding it out, you got 3 guys that are essentially depth guys on the team currently with Zimmer, Bronson, and Twyman. But let's take a peek at some of those free agent options for interior defensive line. And like always, I sorted these by number of snaps the players played in 2022. And there's a mix of big names that are kind of proven guys. And then you've got younger guys that are obviously coming towards the end of their rookie deals, as you can tell kind of by their age. But the big guys, I mean, Deron Payne's going to have a huge payday. Javon Hargrave is going to have a huge payday. You got other guys that had high draft capital coming out that have been good. They haven't blown up like a guy like Christian Wilkins has, like Taven Bryan, Delvin Tomlinson. But there's still a lot of good. Jerry Tillery. There's still a lot of good on this list. So I wouldn't blame anyone trying to make it a run at one of these free agents. But at the end of the day, there's really no one. Like if I have a target list of free agents, regardless of position this year, and trust me, I have a list, there's really no one from the interior defensive line list just because of that current depth. Because I hope we re-sign Christian Wilkins before his deal is up. And we have Zach Sieler, and we'll see what happens with Raekwon Davis. And like you said, John Jenkins is on there, so maybe you get a guy that's familiar with the system if you wanted to bring him back. But at the same time, it's not really being familiar with the system. It would be more so being familiar with the team, because obviously Vic Fangio is going to put his print, his stamp on this defense moving forward. So like I said, I don't necessarily have anyone on this list that I'm saying, yep, go get them. We're targeting that guy. But I would say that if the Dolphins do add somebody, it's not going to be your household name. It's not going to be one of the bigger guys. We've got other areas where we 100% need to be spending money here this offseason. Let's look at the options, though, in the NFL draft, because obviously one of the draft's best overall players, Jalen Carter from Georgia, belongs to this positional grouping. But obviously we're not in the market for something like that. He's a projected top 5 guy. If the Bears don't trade out of number 1, which I think they will, I feel like they'd be dumb not to. He's in play to go number 1 overall. But like I said, we're not in the sweepstakes for any of those early round guys. And so while I personally, look at how many picks we've got there. We've got 3 in the first 3 rounds. I'm not personally investing any draft capital this offseason at the position, but I have to bring up the article that I believe came out like right before the season started last year, when they were talking to Mike McDaniel. Obviously, he was still brand new to the team at that point in time. And in that article, they had asked him like what his favorite position was. And he kind of said it's going to come off as a shock, being an offensive coach, run game coordinator. It's not like it was an offensive lineman or a running back. He actually said it was the defensive line. And he kind of said like, hey, if I had it my way, I would talk Chris Greer into drafting one of these guys every single year. Now, obviously, there's some coach talk in that, and he's just saying things as well because he's got a personality with the media. So you can't rule it out. A guy in even the 3rd round, Keanu Benton, had a nice Senior Bowl a couple of weeks back. Very impressed with what I saw there. There are some guys that you could potentially target. Don't get me wrong. Wouldn't be outright shocked. I just personally, like if I had a vote in this, I wouldn't be spending draft capital at this position simply based on because who we have. So I talk a lot about my positional or my individual player draft profiles that I do leading up to the draft. And to be quite honest, there's probably no one that I'm going to do on in regards to this positional grouping, unless someone at some point really starts drawing interest from the Dolphins that we hear about. I'm probably going to end up just kind of ignoring this position for just the sake of time, the sake that I can probably spend quality time on positions that the Dolphins are a bit more likely to target here yet this offseason. So like I said, I don't personally expect too many drastic changes to the interior defensive line in 2023. But the next video that I do, I hope is different because we're flipping sides of the ball and we're going to focus on the offensive line where I've got some changes that I want to make. So check out that video for sure because I definitely have a lot to talk about in that one. But like I said, if you've got a player in mind, I do want to hear about it. If it's a free agent, if it's a draft prospect, whoever you may have your eye on at this positional grouping, go ahead and let me know because I'm all ears when it comes to suggestions as who to maybe look into. But that's what I've got for this one, Dolphins fans. Like I said, a quick one, but until next time, Fins